A note to listeners. The following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences.
You said when you had moved to Florida, you were so isolated, you had that guy across the street from you. Do you remember?
A house across the street.
Yeah, and he had tools. Was he in construction or something, or a handyman, or?
It was a tool. If it was Leesburg, Florida, he was a tool salesman.
Yeah.
He went out and sold tools, traveling tool salesman. So he was usually gone, and just his wife was there.
Were you ever close to him? Like, did you ever get close to him at all?
Well, that was just the only neighbor we had. And why they're sitting there trying to hitch a ride when they can walk to the beach in 5 minutes? It made no sense at all. Whether they were trying to get some boys to pick them up and to party with, or it's always been a mystery. It just made no sense at all.
You kept them the longest, right? Like 48 hours or something?
Yeah.
Was there a reason?
Yeah. No, just got the time and got nothing better to do. Might as well, try to enjoy it anyway.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman. Hi, everyone. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, even if it's one word.
And please subscribe to our website, www.partnersintruecrime. Follow us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram to check out our weekly promos. We're also now on YouTube at Partners in True Crime. If you subscribe to our website, you'll be getting weekly emails from us and all kinds of promotions and things that we don't advertise on the podcast.
Today, we are going back into criminologist Laura Brand's archives to hear more of the recorded interviews that she did early on with TOOLBOX killer Laurence BITTAKER.
If you ever really wanted to find out what goes on inside the mind of a serial killer like Laurence BITTAKER, these recordings reveal his motivation, his tactics, and a lot of the practical insight on how he chose his victims.
BITTAKER hasn't talked to anyone about his killings for many years, but as soon as Laura was able to peel away the layers of his sadistic personality, the floodgates opened and he told her everything.
Let's hear what he has to say, and don't forget to tell us your thoughts about this episode.
Hey, Laura, how you doing?
Hey, guys.
You look tired. You had a long day, huh?
Yeah, we've been up, since yesterday, pretty much nonstop.
Yeah, so if everybody, just give you a little tease on what Laura's been up to. She's been traveling all over Northern California, working on the Leonard Lake Charles Ng case, and she's finding out a lot of interesting information. And she's talking to a lot of interesting people, and both her and Rob Dick, private investigator, bounty hunter, have been tracking people down and basically ambushing them and interviewing them and trying to extract information. So even when she's not inside prisons extracting information, she's out there in the field extracting information. And we're going to give you a bunch of information about that and one of our other podcasts. But today, what we're going to talk about is the second part of BITTAKER tapes, the interviews that she has recorded over the years of talking to BITTAKER. We did that last week. A lot of people liked it and thought it was very interesting and fascinating. And so we're going to start that today. So Laura, just give us a little backstory on when you did talk to him and record him and how that flowed for you and what was going on in your head when he was telling you all this crazy stuff.
These tapes are kind of early on when I first started, digging into BITTAKER and his case, and he was like an onion. You just had to keep peeling him, the layers back of his psychopathy, but also his stories and, how he, tries to almost rationalize his own crimes in a way. And it's interesting to hear, especially these early tapes of when you go further and deeper into my interviews, you'll actually hear the story change and the rationalization change as he keeps going. So what you're hearing today are the early tapes of BITTAKER.
And does that happen a lot when you're talking to these serial killers? Like they kind of change their stories, they kind of soften up the narrative and all that stuff. Is that just kind of like a human nature thing that people do, or is that indicative to serial killers?
I would say it's human nature. I mean, even the witnesses, like all the ones we tracked down today, there was a lot of conflicting stories from what we know. So it's interesting, hearing from the witnesses and the serial killer, their version of events. And this is why we always check, the court files, the police discovery to make sure, everything is matching up.
Crazy. All right. Well, this first one is right where we left off last week, and it started about the subject is about you asked him about his psychiatrist telling him that he's no longer a psychopath and that he's at this point in his age. So we're going to play this. I mean, what just kind of set that up for us a little bit.
Yeah, so it was very misrepresented on the show, The Toolbox Killer. I did give commentary about it, but it was cut out. There is no such thing as, a magical cure or somebody's cured from antisocial personality. There's never been a documented case. There's no cure. I did get the psych evals from Berger, who's the head psychologist at San Quentin, and he noted there was a substantial change, an improvement in his, antisocial personality traits. And this is something we see very common with age too. Usually around early 50s is when they start to decrease. So it is a natural occurrence with age. But Berger had noted that he had seen a significant one with BITTAKER and flew about 6 other psychologists out to also evaluate him. So as he's speaking, he's very excited that there's a noticeable improvement. Doctors are noticing it. And he uses the word cured. It's not cured. It's just there has been a noted improvement in his psychopathy.
Why do you think he was so excited about being cured?
Well, he's had psych evals since he was 15, 16, and they're all showing, homicidal urges and sadistic personality disorder. Everything you can think of has been noted in his psych evals, all bad from teenage years until this is the first one he actually got, which is kind of like a good one. There's actually an improvement. And I think he was just really excited about that. And I think he was excited because Berger was excited and I was excited. So we were kind of like, oh, how did this, come about? Where did this improvement come from? What was the change? Was there a cause? Like Berger and I were very excited about, looking at him and trying to figure this out, because this could be a breakthrough into psychopathy. And there have been some documented cases where it's just like BITTAKER describes, a dam breaking, but we don't know the cause of it. So Berger and I were very excited, and BITTAKER is excited because, this is his first, good psych eval. And, he's
That's
seeing.
interesting. I mean, I'm surprised that he care about that. I find that interesting.
Yeah.
I have a question for you about how long into the process of you interviewing him, how many years was it before he got this new evaluation?
I think it was 3 years in.
So do you think revealing all this information and talking to you on a regular basis helped him kind of get to that point, you think?
I think it definitely did. I mean, he didn't have any sense of family or friends, really. I mean, all he had was Norris, his whole life. He felt rejected and abandoned by, his biological mother, his adoptive parents. He never just had anybody. And I think, with me, he started looking at me as like a daughter, and Romeo as like a grandson. I didn't find this out until he died, that he carried Romeo's picture around the yard like a grandpa, and with all the balloons around him, because he would always say to me, I never had a birthday party. And he said to me, like on his deathbed, make me a couple promises. And the first promise was to be a good mother. And I think that's why he carried the picture with Romeo and all the balloons, because it was like, I was being a good mother, because he never had that birthday party. So he loved that picture of Romeo, one with all the balloons at the birthday party. So I think for him, having a sense of like belonging and family. And it's very interesting too, because I'm seeing that with Ing, and Rob is too. And when we just talked to a couple of the witnesses on the case, they were saying, Ing just wanted like that family or that belonging. And there's a lot of parallels I'm seeing to BITTAKER and Norris on this case now too.
Yeah. How did that make you feel when he said he was like Grandpa BITTAKER for your son?
He never said grandpa. I'm just using that as like an analogy because of age.
All right. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just thought like, yeah.
But I think, for me, it's really hard to forget about what he did. I commend you for being able to do this work, because for the victims and what they suffered, it's almost like, okay, he had this horrible childhood. He had these horrible things happen to him as a child, which is horrible.
Right.
But how does that turn into the sadistic psychopathic killing.
Part of the research, we're trying to find out. And, that's, I think, why Berger and I got so excited about this, like, kind of breakthrough. Like, is this a breakthrough that could lead to some type of treatment early on, early prevention type of thing? I think that's why Berger and I got so excited seeing this. Like, could this be, the way in, the key into psychopathy and early prevention for that, so we don't have to see these types of crimes and their victims that we have to think about from these like horrendous crimes. It's all about prevention is this work.
Exactly. And I mean, it's interesting that there's a similarity with Ng, who also did like the most horrific things you could ever imagine, and that with you and Rob going to see him regularly, it seems like there's some breakthroughs that no one's ever been able to do before.
Yeah, because he hasn't talked in 40 years to anybody.
Nobody.
And I have a question for you in regards to what you said about this happens a lot later in life with serial killers as they get older. Do you think the fact that the libido's gone, the sex drive's gone, the testosterone is limited, do you think that has something to do with it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's not really, I wouldn't even just qualify this as like serial killers. It's anybody with psychopathy or antisocial personality traits, early 50s, they see the decrease, and it has a lot to do with biological, elements that you're putting in, like libido, testosterone, that kind of stuff. And then the impulse controls. I mean, there's so many different factors in psychologically, biologically that play into it. But we've seen studies have shown that this actually starts to decrease early 50s. So age is a big factor.
Okay. All right. Well, let's play the first clip here.
So you were telling me your psychologist just said that you're not a sociopath anymore?
Psychiatrist. I've got a psychologist too, and he's a new replacement, and I'm not going to be seeing him. A guy named Berger, Dr. Berger, he's a psychiatrist.
And you're like cured, or what does he mean?
Well, sociopaths act in certain ways. I'm sure you know, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I haven't broken many laws in the last 37 years that I've been here. And didn't I write you about a little article about becoming fully human and how my emotions kind of broke open?
I did. It was fascinating to me because I hear that as you get older, you lose some of those sociopathic traits as you age. And I didn't know if it was just a theory or if it's been proven or if it was true. And then you told me that, and it's so intriguing.
Yeah, well, you said that was his opinion. I suppose he could run some sort of tests and verify it. But that becoming fully human incident was kind of a turning point. They had a piece about Africa the other day about some drought over there in one of the countries. And one of the things they happened to mention was no food for the animals. And they showed, somebody mentioned that her goat had just given birth, but they didn't have any food for the goat, and showed an empty bowl with just a couple little bits in the bottom of it. I didn't show the goat, but here I just started crying over a hungry goat.
Wow.
I hadn't even seen from an empty bowl. That's how sensitive I've gotten.
So you were never sensitive before? Like you never cried? You never?
No, I occasionally, but that when I thought when I thought Leia had been killed or something, came kind of cracked my emotions open somehow, broke some sort of barrier. Maybe changed things. So, but I don't know why it's not possible for a sociopath to change. Like you mentioned, aging is probably one of the biggest factors that affects that.
They've said that.
I am older now.
When you were younger, though, like, were you aware that you were a sociopath?
Well, I didn't really think about it. I don't think anybody mentioned it really till quite a few years later.
Like when you were younger.
You gotta remember, I hardly know what a normal person was supposed to act like because I was so isolated growing up.
Right, that's true. But did you ever think it was weird that you didn't feel like you saw somebody crying, or you didn't feel that response, or you saw empathy and you didn't really feel it? Did you ever feel like, oh, that's odd, I'm not feeling that?
I'd occasionally myself, but I never really connected the two or noticed that I was missing any. Again, that's back to the isolation. I was never hardly in a situation that I was aware of really hurting anyone other than, stealing stuff from mostly commercial enterprises. So it's connecting the two and being aware of it, it doesn't come necessarily automatically.
Right.
Kind of a taught experience of parents teaching their kids, hey, doing this hurts people and you shouldn't do it, and blah, blah, blah. And I just, it just made it hard to believe. I just didn't have that type of parents. It was like I was a boarder living there.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about it because I think he goes into his childhood at that point.
Yeah,
so,
he does.
That's really fascinating.
It is.
The train of thought about how he's really the self-analysis. And I really think that I don't think he would have been able to access that self-analysis or at least articulate it the way he's articulating it now if you hadn't started talking to him.
Yeah. And I think it was Hare, I believe, who wrote up the PCLR, how we scale from sociopath, psychopath, antisocial. And he has a quote, I believe it's him. It said, if you wonder if you are, you're not. And you kind of hear Bittaker when I say to him, did you ever think you were? He's like, no, never thought about it, which shows the traits, they just don't think about it. And the best analogy I use for people who have antisocial personality is they don't have the deeper emotions that we have. So, if we lose somebody in our lives, like it's traumatizing, we mourn, we feel it, we feel that loss. Somebody with antisocial personality disorders, such as sociopath, psychopath, when they lose someone, it's almost the same way as like when we lose a vehicle. It's like we might have liked that vehicle, it was handy, it got us from point A to point B, but in a couple of days we'll go out and get a new car, and that's it. So that's how kind of they are with the, people in their lives. It's almost like they're a vehicle, they're a means to an end. He describes his ex-girlfriend, that first rejection from high school. I said, when you lost her, how did you feel? And he was like, it was the equivalent to like losing my book of stamps. It was sad, like property.
Right.
Yeah.
Because isn't that the trait of a narcissistic psychopath, though? To have that vessel to like feed off of?
Well, they're very parasitic. And then, narcissism is included in antisocial. It's one of like the traits. When you tally all the traits up, narcissism is included. So they look at people as property. They don't have that higher emotion, for that loss. So when he describes, his loss of the girlfriend as a book of stamps, the same way, it's very telling. Yeah.
And he went from treating someone like a book of stamps to getting emotional over a goat now. It was almost like, like that Kodak moment commercials, those that people, someone's laying on the couch, they're kind of tired at night and they see that sad commercial or that heartwarming commercial and they start cheering up. That was his Kodak moment. Yeah. So bizarre. When he was revealing that stuff, I mean, how did you react to it? Because it's like, it was really, it's like everything starts to unlock at that point. He starts spilling information, what's going on in his brain.
Did you ever feel like he was just telling you that because it's what you wanted to hear?
No, I really don't. I mean, because I wasn't really looking for him to like show empathy. I was more like, tell me about the crimes in your childhood. I wasn't asking for like a crying goat story, when I'm interviewing him. So no, I'm actually more, at the time, was asking more of like the nitty gritty details. And he kind of wanted me to know about this, breakthrough he had, and even Berger noted it.
Yeah. What did he say?
He saw, I've only seen the psyche valves, and I've always wanted to talk to Berger. Unfortunately, I can't because of HIPAA. But through the psyche valves that I did see, he saw, he said a noticeable, significant improvement.
All right, I think he starts going into his childhood here real quick.
And they would take care of the meals and the food and, the rent and the bedding and medicine, but there was hardly any communications otherwise. I'd be in my room fiddling around with something, and they'd be doing whatever they were doing. They didn't even talk to each other, so, they didn't talk to me either. Wasn't good.
Did they ever say, like, I love you? Did they ever hug you? Anything?
Hardly. It was just my father was very stoic, and he almost never heard anything from him. My mother was a little more assertive and talkative, but she didn't talk very much. And they most all the time, both of them worked.
You gonna stop?
And those were the adopted parents.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What happened to his birth mother?
She gave up him and his Irish twin brother, Charles, to the different aunts and uncles in the family. She ended up moving to Texas and had 4 more kids. And the other 4 kids, I've read reports from his appeals on them, and they said living with the bio mom was really horrific.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Did he ever reach out? Did he have a relationship with any of the siblings?
His Irish twin brother, Charles, I guess the 2 adopted parents got them together like 3 or 4 times when they were living in Florida. But that was it. That was the only one he ever talked to.
So is he still alive, the brother?
No, he died, I think it was early 2000s. I've spoken with Charles's daughter, though.
So when did Bittaker find out that his mom had another family? That must have been traumatic for him.
Yeah. I think he found out pretty early on. I think he's always kind of known she went away and, had 4 more kids that she kept. And when I had the report from, his, I guess it would be his younger sister, but the oldest of the 4 she kept, and I read the report to him and I said, you would have had a horrific life if you had been with your mom. And that was one of the times he just got really upset and he was like, no, I would have been with my mom. I should have been with my mom.
It's really hard to have empathy for him.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad as a child.
It's really hard for me to just say, oh, okay, well, it makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. I mean, that's the thing. It's like analyzing his brain and this antisocial psychotic personality disorder. Is there any...
Well, if you look at it, I mean, this is why I always say like the perfect storm. I mean, you're looking at genetics, which would be, the genetic components to it, but also then the nurture mixed in is creating the perfect storm for something like a serial killer to emerge from. But then I have some serial killers with great upbringings. There's nothing there, which is even more
Douglas
confusing.
Clark, wasn't he one of them?
Yeah, he had a very, very privileged.
Yeah.
Childhood. I mean, I think it's twisted DNA. I think there's something there with the genetics. Something's just wrong.
Did he ever have any severe head injuries when he was younger?
Funny enough, according to Douglas Clark, this was after Bittaker passed away, he had called me and he said, did you ever feel the back of Bittaker's head? And I said, no. Why would I felt the back of his head? He goes, it was flat. And that happens with infants when you just leave them laying a lot. And I was like, his head was flat. Like I hadn't seen, he always had hair, even in the back when he was dying.
Mm-hmm.
Doug said he had like tapped on the back and it was just like flat. Like he was like flat. So that was always something I noted because that's very interesting. As far as like frontal lobe head injuries, no.
I think it's genetics.
Yeah.
It's DNA. I think it's twisted.
Well, if he was a neglected baby and they just left him in the crib for very long periods of time, that could happen too. But independent of that, I mean, I know a lot of people, even personally, like my mom had a horrible upbringing. I mean, granted, she was a woman, but she wasn't a man, so it's a little different. Probably just as bad, if not worse, than Bittaker. And I know a lot of people have had probably worse off situations growing up as well. So, I mean, I guess it's a factor, but I think at the end of the day, it's like Cindy said, there's something else lurking in there.
Genetics.
It's true.
Because
I brought up the head injury only because I remember when we first spoke to Wayne Adam Ford, you remember you telling us that he had some sort of head injury at some point.
Yeah.
And that was like his switch, or one of the switches.
Yeah. No, there have been cases of serial killers where right after that head injury, something just switches. Yeah, there's been cases of those. But you're right. It's almost like people who have had the trauma, especially in childhood, it's like almost like a fork. It's like some people choose to help and some people choose to hurt. And it's like that fork.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a conscious choice. He made that choice. We don't have free will. He made a choice to do some evil things. Did anyone ever do a brain scan on him?
No. This is something Dr. White and I have talked about, getting more brain scans done. And there's actually some other tests we've talked about, like going to the prisons and doing that have not been done before.
Oh, God. It'd be so great to do that with Ing and really get to see what would cause someone to turn into the devil like that. Because I mean, it's awful what these people have done.
Yeah, I don't know how many hoops you'd have to jump through to try to get that to go, though. I mean, it's like you're having a hard enough time just dealing with the prison just to get interviews.
It's true. Well, that's why we were talking about. There's one test we can do in person without any equipment. So we were talking about doing that one, and it actually can show us different parts of the brains that are working or not working, or different areas.
I mean, it's important research because it can really help you understand if you have a child who's exhibiting antisocial behavior at a young age and you take them to get a brain scan and you can understand that there's something wrong. Maybe there's a way to fix it before something tragic happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Because with all these school shootings and all these mass shootings, they're all teenagers. So
I know.
As a society, we have a big problem. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
So this research is crucial to understanding what causes. Just because they're teenagers doesn't mean they're not serial killers. These are serial killers. This is the modern day serial killer, are teen mass shooters.
Spree killers.
Spree killers. It's the same thing. So, we really need to understand what's causing this in order to stop it.
We really do.
Them, though, I think, and I'm just speculating here, but with the spree killers and the school shootings, I think it's less as opposed to serial killers. Serial killers seem to be more narcissistic, and because they want to get away, they want to keep on doing it, and it's more, they get more fixated as opposed to an event that the spree killers create, and knowing that they probably aren't going to come out alive.
Yeah. And it was actually Wayne Adam Ford, him and I have had many discussions about the school shooters and the spree killers. And, he said, you're seeing this now, the uprising of all these spree killers and mass shooters. And it's with all these teenagers, this certain time frame. And the peak age of serial killing is 27. So we've had discussions, is this, cluster where we're seeing all these mass shooters, in 10 years when they hit that age of 27, is this same group, the ones that didn't go into a school, with a gun, is there going to be a mass wave of more serial killers from this?
That's what I'm saying. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep on listening.
Remember when I met you in person, it really always stuck out to me. I think I said it in the letter too. You said when you had moved to Florida, you were so isolated, you had that guy across the street from you. Do you remember?
A house across the street?
Yeah, and he had tools. Was he in construction or something, or a handyman, or?
It was a tool. If it was Leesburg, Florida, he was a tool salesman.
Yeah.
He went out and sold tools, traveling tool salesman. So he was usually gone, and just his wife was there.
Were you ever close to him? Did you ever get close to him at all?
Well, that was just the only neighbor we had.
Hello, partners in true crime. How many of you have become skeptical about custom beauty? I get it. My feed is flooded with customize this, personalize that, all promising to fix my dry skin, split ends, fine lines. But when Prose says custom, they actually mean it. It's not a gimmick. Your formula couldn't exist without you.
Each and every bottle of Prose custom hair and skincare is made to order and personalize with a unique blend of naturally powerful and proven effective ingredients to meet your needs. Their in-depth consultation analyzes over 80 factors for a complete view of your life and beauty goals.
They get personal. Prose covers everything from your concerns to diet, exercise, and stress levels to uncover what's impacting your hair and skin health. They even asked me my zip code to understand how the UV index, water hardness, and the hot, dry desert weather where I live impacts me.
Next, they recommend a full routine of truly personalized products, which are only produced after I place my order. Nothing pre-mixed, nothing off the shelf.
And I know from experience that one-of-a-kind formulas equal 1 in a million results. We have really hard water at our house, and since I switched to Prose, I've noticed a complete difference. My hair is softer and stronger, and most importantly, it's not breaking.
But don't just take Cindy's word for it. In a third-party, double-blind, dermatologist-supervised control clinical study, aka the gold standard in research studies, Prose proved that personalization works better than off-the-shelf alternatives.
Try it for yourself and get your healthiest hair in 30 days, or your money back.
Prose is so confident that you'll love your results that they're offering our listeners an exclusive trial offer so you can see the difference custom care can make. 50% off your first subscription order at prose.com/PITC.
That's prose.com/PITC for your free consultation and 50% off of your one-of-a-kind formula. Prose.com/PITC.
Cindy, don't you want to eat stress-free this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals? Every fresh, never-frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes.
Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular choices like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Also discover more than 60 add-ons every week like breakfast, on-the-go lunch snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day. What are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel up on your springtime goals.
Cindy's always worried about what I'm eating, which is why I love Factor, because you can get chef-prepared meals on the table in 2 minutes with Factor's ready-to-eat meals.
Looking for gourmet meals? Try meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, truffle butter, broccolini, and asparagus.
No fuss, no messy meals. Factor meals eliminate the hassle of prepping, cooking, or cleaning. Simply heat and savor the good stuff.
Tailor to your schedule, customize weekly meals with the flexibility to get as much as you need. Pause or schedule deliveries to suit your lifestyle.
Factor is your solution for fast, premium meals without the need for cooking.
We're celebrating Earth Day all month long. Look for Earth Month Eats badge on the menu for our lowest carbon footprint meals.
Head to factormeals.com/PITC50 and use code PITC50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active.
Hey everyone, if you love reality shows and love to hear all pop culture insider news, you're going to love this podcast.
The Sarah Fraser Show is a daily podcast covering pop culture, reality recaps like Sister Wives, 90 Day Fiancé, and your favorite Bravo shows, plus guests of all kinds. You might learn something too, and a splash of Sarah's own personal life. Hint.
She's trying to have her second baby at 42 and shares every last detail about it, for better or worse.
The Sarah Fraser Show has been featured in the New York Post, Daily Mail, and more.
You might have seen Sarah recently on Lifetime's Married at First Sight kickoff and mid-season show with host Kevin Frazier.
Check out The Sarah Fraser Show today, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
I'm sorry. The fact that it's a tool salesman is just crazy.
What
did you think of that when he said that?
That was in my in-person interview, and he was telling me about his childhood. And I was like, were there any neighbors around? He was like, oh, a tool salesman. I was like, wait, what? And it was kind of just like a passing comment. And you see in my interviews, I keep going back to it because I'm like, it's just too coincidental. That would be the one neighbor he remembers is the tool salesman.
Yeah, I just had to stop there.
It's shocking.
It is.
It was at least a mile before the next residence of any sort. At pastime, we may be wandering around the grounds looking for snakes or turtles or, whatever was there. There was nobody to play with. Come home from school, and I was all by myself.
The reason it had struck me is because I just remember you mentioning him, and he was your only neighbor within miles when you were isolated, and it's just ironic you later go on to become, quote unquote, the toolbox killers. Why don't you tell me about the first killing, the first victim? You said that you and Roy had just snatched her off a sidewalk.
We were just driving around each area one weekend. I guess it was a Sunday afternoon. He spotted some girl walking down the street, so I turned around and turned up some side street. When it was going up a hill, stopped at the corner to play with some new kittens. And then she crossed the street to the wrong side, and I drove up behind her and pulled on to the wrong side, and up beside her and said, hey, you want to ride? Want some grass, blah, blah, blah. And she said no and kept on walking down the street. And I drove off ahead of her, did a U-turn and parked on the side she was walking down in somebody's driveway. And Roy got out, and there was kind of a bushy area between the sidewalk and the street. There were some bushes there. He got behind one of them, and as she come down the street past him, he jumped out and grabbed her. He got a couple little quick screams, and he dragged her into the van. I closed the door, and I drove up the hill off.
What did you think of that story, that he just rolled up on some teenager and...
Cindy was walking home from the church meeting, very safe area right in Redondo. And what he doesn't say in this one, he tells me later on, Cindy was walking up, so she had said, no, I don't want any grass, I don't want to ride. She did everything right. And they drove off ahead of her, and Roy got out and pretended like he was fixing something on the van. And BITTAKER was watching her through the rear view mirror. And he saw, like, when she walked up and saw them, she actually paused because she was like, oh, these creepy guys, you could tell. and she was like hesitant to about to turn and go across the street, and Bittaker noticed this slight pause, like she was already thinking about it, and he shouts behind him, "Is it fixed yet? What's going on?" And Roy answers him like, no, still needs some work. That's how perceptive these predators are. They can notice 1 second of hesitation and do something to counteract it, which is what Bittaker did with Norris. And then she kept walking along that path.
Because her instincts were like, get the hell away from these people.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
always trust that first instinct. Don't hate.
Yeah.
And Cindy's still missing.
Still missing. Yep.
Do you think she's in that cave lake location?
No, we have Cindy and Andrea's location.
Oh,
These
okay.
are the ones he pinpointed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Cindy's still missing, but he gave you the location of where she's at.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue the playlist here.
For weapons, I was living in a bad part of downtown LA for a while on Skid Row, basically, and I had to catch a bus from there to work until I got around to buying the van. So I just got a squirt gun and filled it up with full-strength ammonia. So if anybody got to messing with me, I just squirt them in the face with that.
Wow. Did you ever do it?
No, never had to. Not long after that, I bought a replica 45 automatic and used to carry that around in a belt holster or shoulder holster, and people would be able to see that pretty easily, and they wouldn't mess with me usually.
Did you buy the van? Like, you bought the van, like, shortly after that, right?
Yeah, I bought it today. I think it was May or June. I got out in December, about 6 months after I got out.
Was it supposed to be like a work van, or was it
something that I could live in an emergency in case of need? Something big enough to carry around whatever I owned.
Okay, so let's talk about the van.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about the squirt gun with the ammonia.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's like...
Didn't he plan on doing that at the beach?
Yeah, they were going to put some type of acid in the squirt guns and give them to kids on the beach and watch the kids like squirt people and maim people on the beach. He did use the squirt gun full of chemicals on survivor Jan Mallon. She was a 29-year-old flight attendant in Manhattan Beach who was coming home from work. She was getting out of her car in her garage, and Bittaker, she saw the van getting backed up and the door was open, the light in the van was open, and Roy was backing up, and she thought that was so strange. And then she sees Bittaker coming from the side and starts squirting her in the face. And then he threw her to the ground, was trying to drag her. She was like about 3 feet from the van and she couldn't see anything. And she was like, her whole chest, arms were burning with chemicals. And thank God Paige was just screaming, bloody murder, and all the neighbors rushed out and it scared off Roy. Bittaker ran up the street, saved her life.
Just the thought of having the idea of just putting those chemicals in a squirt gun, it's bizarre. First to use it as protection for himself, then he probably like, oh, I can use this on victims as well. I mean, we knew he was very smart. He has a high IQ and he worked as a...
But it's just so sadistic.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He enjoyed torturing people.
Mm-hmm.
He did.
That's the scary part. And I mean, this poor woman is coming home from work. She's not even thinking. She's probably thinking about what she's gonna make for dinner. She's in her garage. Did she pull into her garage?
She pulled it. Yeah, it was a detached garage. Very safe neighborhood, Manhattan Beach, right? Like 3 blocks from the beach. Very safe. And she was just parking her car, getting out of her detached garage to go into her place. And yep, they had been trailing her for blocks. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, that's the part that's so scary. Like, you never know who's watching you. And that's the thing with, like, social media now. Like, you don't know who's looking at you. You have no idea who's watching you.
Yeah.
No idea.
I know we were trying to track her down, that woman, to see if we can talk to her. Love to hear her story.
Yeah.
I've spoken with Jan, and yeah, it's wild to hear it straight from her, what happened too. And she never recovered fully from this. She went on to...
I'm surprised she talked to you.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, I've spoken with so many witnesses, even now on Ing's case. They'll tell me the whole story, but a lot of them don't want to say it publicly. Once I've talked, sat down and spoken with these killers, and I've, reviewed the case files, it's, and I go to the witnesses, there's almost like a kinship, because I know exactly, the horror they've really lived through. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people can truly comprehend, what they have lived through. But someone who has sat down with the killer and read these court transcripts and, heard it from all the other witnesses. And it's a kinship of understanding, what the horror and how much their lives have been impacted from this, violent crime.
You have all the intimate details of their trauma.
Right.
All right. Well, here we got some more here.
Just systems of opportunity, right?
Basically, other than the first one, she was snatched off the sidewalk. She didn't want to take a ride. So
Say the sisters were hitchhiking, right? You picked them up hitchhiking?
well, they weren't sisters; they were just friends.
Oh,
Gilliam, Lamp, and Gilliam, Lamp, and Gilly. They were just friends. That's the strangest pair of the bunch. They were coming from their houses, which were kind of inland, and they walked down to the beach area. They crossed the Highway 101 that runs along the coast. Where are you? You're back east, so you don't know. And they stopped about a block from the beach and sat on a park bench and put their thumbs out. The whole place was loaded with cars coming in there on their way to the beach, so it was a traffic jam all in there, in that area. And why they're sitting there trying to hitch a ride when they can walk to the beach in 5 minutes. It made no sense at all. Whether they were trying to get some boys to pick them up and to party with, or it's always been a mystery. It just made no sense at all.
you kept them the longest, right? Like 48 hours or something?
Yeah.
Was there a reason?
Yeah. No. Just got the time and they got better to do. Might as well, try to enjoy it anyway.
Kind of enjoying it. That's the quote of the day.
Mhm.
Just
So
have
awful.
time on his hands, sit back and enjoy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the part that's like, sadistic psycho. And now with age, he's not anymore.
Well, no, he's definitely still. Yeah,
I
for
thought
sure.
the thing I find interesting is just how he remembers all the details.
They remember it like photographic memory. They all do. It is imprinted in their minds. They can recall the slightest detail. I always say to people, where were you on 9/11? These, whether it's traumatic or happy, your wedding day or something, those moments in our lives that get imprinted in our brains, just like it does with serial killers.
Yeah, but very detailed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, just the fact that he described, he goes, I don't know why they were just doing there, whether they're hitchhiking, they're right across from the beach. He's trying to speculate on why they were doing it.
Yeah.
Like little nuances like that are.
Well, I had played, this was early on. I want to say it was like a year in to interviewing Bittaker. I had played this for some FBI agents at a conference I was at, who had interviewed him too. And I had said, I just wanted to compare notes, and their mouths dropped. And I was like, what? And they were like, he just said it was Norris the entire time. When he said he wasn't even there, no details. And so
Wow.
when I think I did play him that clip, and they were just like, their mouths dropped because they're like, he's never gone into detail. And he just does it like you just ask a question and he just goes straight into it. And I was like, so he's never done this before. They're like, no. They're like, he just said he wasn't even there. It was all Norris. So when I heard that and going back to these tapes and just how quickly he's answering and going into these details, I was really mind blown. And even what you're going to see, I guess, when I'm talking about the Onion of later on tapes, when he says, they were sitting on the park bench talking about Jackie and Leah. They were not just a block away from the beach. They're a couple blocks. But he tries to blame the girls, the victims, for just getting in the van. Like it's their fault. And then he says, well, not Cindy. She didn't want to take a ride. Ha ha. I can't even go into that one. But the way he just victim blames, and then you'll hear later on, if he tries, well, they got in the van. I'm like, not to be raped and murdered. Like, Larry, come on. And he'll just be like, you're right. Yeah. Okay. But you see this progression of all right, let's cut the bullshit kind of as you keep going forward and get more comfortable. And we're getting to that point with Ing right now too.
Yeah, because you're showing up and you're doing the work, and
Consistently.
Right.
He's trusting
Right.
you guys. It's fascinating that you're able to get him to talk like that.
Yeah.
because They all say they didn't do it. I mean, even every single one of them, that's their MO. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Wrongful conviction. I'm not guilty. I'm
Police
innocent.
corruption. I'm innocent.
Police
Yeah.
corruption, blah, blah, blah. It's always the same story. So when you hear
It
him
is.
actually saying that he did do it, it is interesting.
I know. And this is what we need, to understand the mindset, the psychopathy. Like, this is what we need, is to hear these truthful moments come out from their mouths about what happened. And even if their warped sense of, rationalization of it, we're still able to extract a ton of information just from that, just from observing them and how they speak and what they're saying and how they are rationalizing it in their own minds. It tells us a lot.
Yeah. And you basically create an environment for them to be vulnerable with you.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's something that they've been always very guarded about, all this information, because some of them have these fantasies about appeals and who knows, if they can get out. I mean, I was just reading today about Polly Klaas's murderer could possibly get out.
No.
Yes.
No.
Just read an article that he might.
No, that was awful. I was there. I was in San Francisco. I was in Marin County when that happened.
He's on death row. Are they overturning his death penalty?
Wow.
Yeah, it was an article. I mean, it was the headline. I just read the first couple lines, like literally right before we started the podcast.
Oh, Nina needs.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it just came out like literally tonight. So
I'm seeing Bart Klaas on Wednesday.
Yeah, and Nina. So Nina definitely.
And Nina, yeah.
You'll probably find more out about it then.
Yeah, that's
wow.
That story is one of the most horrific stories I've ever heard. That poor little girl is so pretty.
Yeah.
Not far from where you are right now.
Exactly.
I know. Very close.
All right.
Let's play another one.
One more, and then
we have time for one more.
47 minutes.
Did you like one of the victims? I feel like one of those girls you like in a sense.
Yeah, Gillian was really gorgeous.
Did you want to kill her, or did you just want to hold her captive?
No. Back in '59, when I was a prisoner in a nut house, 19 years old, and I developed a fantasy since I had so much trouble meeting girls and blah, blah, blah. I would figure out a way to build a large house or small city underground somewhere in a desolate area, and then manage to go out and kidnap anonymously selected girls to take their, and we would pretend, both her and I, not pretend, I would set it up so that I could pretend that both of us were captives of some alien culture, and we were on a spaceship headed for some foreign planet to repopulate. Yeah, I never wanted to kill them.
Stop. Do you think that's true? That he didn't want to kill them?
This is actually really true with the sexual sadists. Is a lot of them just want to hold them captives, and the killing is just, an effect from the torture. I mean, they still want to torture, their victims and harm them, maim them, so the killing is kind of like an after effect of what they really want to do. But the fantasy, just like Lake and Ing, with the bunker or this underground city of these captives, like almost identical. I was just saying that to Rob today. I was like, Bittaker's fantasy is identical to Lake and Ing's. Like, it's,
and that's why that space we found, that space we saw, is so terrifying.
Which one?
I know.
Crawl space.
Oh yeah.
I have a question. If there's let's just say an average guy who's consistently joking about wanting to keep you captive, like as a joke, like, oh yeah,
well, that's what Lake did.
Women should be aware of.
Yeah, well, that's what Lake was doing. Like, half the witnesses we talked to today, they're like, he was always talking about it. Operation Miranda, having a captive, like, always talking about it, joking about it, and nobody took him seriously. And that's what you hear with so many of these stories, like, oh, we just didn't take him seriously. Yeah, if somebody's even just joking about wanting to have somebody captive or fantasizing about it, it's a huge red flag. Yeah. Definitely.
Or a very possessive boyfriend who doesn't let the girlfriend or wife go out by herself and do anything, and keeps her inside, and I mean, stuff happens all the time. We hear about people being chained up in houses and kept in cages.
Yeah.
The fact that it's so parallel to Ing and Lake, what do you think about that?
It's crazy, especially I was listening to one tape with Lake just recently, and he said, I want to make it a series of underground kind of buildings. And that was something Bittaker had stated to me so many times too. Like he had that fantasy of like not just being one, but like almost like an underground, like multiple buildings underground. And he was going to have the same thing. You know, it was a bomb shelter, Armageddon. You heard him, aliens invaded. And I used to always say to him, like, Bittaker, this is that movie Cloverfield.
Yeah.
The exact plot to it. His fantasy actually dates prior to that movie when it actually came out, though, funny enough. But that is exactly like Lakes. He was saying, you know, Armageddon's coming and this is just a bomb shelter. And that's what Bittaker had said. If he ever built one, he was going to be like, it's just a bomb shelter, you know, but really it's a dungeon.
Yeah. Well, it's
a dungeon.
Just like, you know, Silence of the Lambs, you know, the pit he kept the girl in, you know, inside his house. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Terrifying. All
Unfortunately,
right. I've heard people say things like that before.
Do we have time for one more?
As a joke. I knew someone who used to say stuff like that as a joke, and I would always be like, it's not a joke.
Who said that? You knew?
People that way I knew.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I know, but it was like a joke. And I was like, it's not a joke. I would get upset and be like, that's not a joke. Why are you saying that to her?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's do one more real quick. This is crazy.
Why didn't you just hold them captive? Was it because you didn't have space to do it?
Didn't have who?
You didn't have like enough room. You didn't have a cabin in the woods. You didn't have the means.
Yeah, I had no really nowhere to go. We probably could have extended it by working shifts and keeping it in the van for a while. But it was, you know, the surprising part of all this is that most of it wasn't planned in any real extent. It was Roy almost got busted kidnapping some girl on the way to high school graduation, and she managed to escape. He calls me at work in the middle of the night, come get me, you know, I'm hiding out. I don't know if they tapped me or not. So I told him, just quit this and we'll go out together and do this. And really didn't think through all the consequences, and that's how it got started.
When did you and Roy start like talking about doing it? Was this when you guys were locked up together?
No, there was a certain amount of talk up in prison before we were paroled, you know. But nothing really detailed or bullshit sessions of, hey, you know, you should do this, you could do that, blah blah this and blah blah that. There was nothing really planned.
I don't believe that.
That is such bullshit. No, they started planning, what was it, 2 to 3 years prior in prison. I mean, the whole idea from the ice pick came from a movie they saw in prison. They had been planning this for a long time, a very long time. Yeah.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, fascinating stuff. I mean, I'm sure we got plenty more where that came from, and you're accumulating stuff from the other serial killers there. It's really fascinating to see how their minds work and how you're able to really tap into that and, like I said, create a vulnerable environment for them so they feel safe to tell you all this stuff, because it's, you know, granted, you know, with Bittaker, I think he knew he was dying. He could do that, but still, I mean, a lot of these guys aren't dying and they're still opening up to you that way. And
well, Bittaker didn't know he was dying until the last 5 months. He got the cancer the 5 months, and then we had 5 months. He was put me as next of kin, and we were in a mad dash to get the exact points. But the 4.5, nearly 5 years.
How does that feel to be like listed as next of kin to a serial killer? I mean, I know why you do it, so you can get information and you get access to all their files.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone's like, "What did he leave you?" And I'm like, "Headache, a case." Like, no, it was only to get past the red tape.
Nightmares.
Yeah, exact nightmares. That's what he left me. No, it was only to get past the red tape, listed as next of kin, to give me more access to the case once he was gone. That was all, you know, purpose of it. So I don't really think of myself as like real next of kin. It's just like, it's just like, here's the case. Good luck after I'm gone. Right. That's the thing. Yeah.
Well, Laura, you are a rock star. Laura has been up since probably the crack of dawn this morning, drove like 6 hours, and then did this.
Yeah.
So
right now it's like 11:15.
It's 11:15 at night.
Yes.
So thank you for doing it so late. But
we have a lot more to come.
Much stuff. I can't wait for you to tell us what happened today.
So much happened today.
Going on, and we'll reveal that in the next coming weeks when we start talking about the in case a little bit more. But
this was the first time in 10 years since I've been doing cases where I was so overwhelmed with the amount of witnesses. Like it was like one after another, like we couldn't talk to all of them at once. Like it was really crazy.
You guys talked to us earlier in the day, and you say, "Oh, yeah, well, because you talked to the one person, yeah, we're heading back," and then and I like, "Are you guys almost home yet?" And he goes, "No, we haven't even left yet.
Right.
We ran into all these other people, and they started spilling their guts." So, kudos to you and Rob for doing all that important work, and we'll just continue, watching and reporting your journey, and go get some sleep.
Yeah,
I am.
All right.
Thanks for staying up, guys.
Yeah. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and check out extra content from all of our podcasts. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content.